Hi, welcome to the Azeroth review, where we're going to discuss all sorts of things. You've caught me mid-typing a response on the new US forums. Now, where was I? I'm just going to finish this off, and then we will get started. I'll tell you what I'm talking about as well in a moment. Just let me... Being a bit harsh there, never mind, you can decide that yourself. So, hi everyone. Basically, I've only just got back and eaten and all the rest of it. I've been absolutely, I haven't had time to put my feet up today so far. Because Tuesday we sort of get back from work late as it is, and it was a little bit later today. And then I had other things to do and try and set up to try and do a Warhammer video after this. But, so I've been having a little browse of the forums on the Blue post, the ones that the Blues reply to. And one of my bugbears came up, which is, and I've talked about this, of course, before, which is this idea. Someone was saying, please, can you reconsider allowing the rewards we get in Classic to spill over into retail version? Not between characters on Classic, but just specifically for retail. And the answer came back. And to be fair, the community manager replying here can do nothing else but say what the developers said at BlizzCon, because it's not their job to say anything different. And but what they said was, oh, we don't want to diminish how special that gear is when people collected it a long ago. But like I've just had to say in a reply on that post, it's only special because Blizzard dislike. Basically, anyone can go back and get all the gear I worked really hard for at any time in the game's history, apart from vanilla. So what's so special about that 2004 to 2006 content? The only thing that's so special about it, I said, is that Blizzard disliked it so much that they got rid of it. Because they did. They got rid of Naxxramas because they were too lazy to come up with a raid for the beginning of Wrath. And they got rid of the rest of it because they thought they had a better idea in Cataclysm. Some people will, some people don't. So, for those who are new, say hello. And you can discuss whatever we want. I thought one topic we might want to discuss while we're in a bad mood, potentially. Oh, the Blizzard share price continues to fall. Yeah, I haven't checked it this week. I mean, it's baffling to me, but the only things I've had to say about it are where people are drawing false links with it. I mean, at the end of the day, the reason they're falling is because they're not making as much of a profit as they said they would be. That's it. That is it. Which is not good. It's not a good thing, obviously, because for us as players, it might be. Let's have a little look. What are they down to now? Oh yeah, okay. Because for us as players, it's bad because it might provoke knee-jerk reactions, and obviously for the business, it's bad. Because, well, obviously, it doesn't look good for executives where this sort of thing happens. So this is now basically a 2-month slide, isn't it? It's been going on for 2 months now. Wow. Don't be in a bad mood. I'm never in a bad mood. In fact, part of not being in a bad mood is actually moaning about things. Moaning about things is extremely healthy for your mental health. Because rather than bottling it all up, you just get it all out there. You made a thread on faction balance and cross-faction grouping. Yeah, I saw that, Valish. I did actually reply to that for a couple of things. Because that, well, I don't call idiots. People have their points of view. When it comes to faction, just for everyone else, what the topic is about, it's about factions. I always say this. Factions are essential for PvP. But for PvE, they are a barrier. And I actually said in reply, it's bad for the business because ultimately what you're saying to people is, oh, you two friends, yeah, you can't play together. Like when I first started playing World of Warcraft, basically I was convinced, I'd played the Warcraft games, I was not automatically going to play World of Warcraft. I didn't think I'd like that style of game. So, and I was wrong, of course, not for the first time. And so I wasn't going to play it, and a friend convinced me to play it. Now, here's the thing. If it had turned out, because I was going to play that was the thing that got me to play it in the end. That's how he persuaded me. I could play a paladin. Now, if it had turned out that he was playing Horde, that would have been it. That would have been game over. It would be like, oh, I can play a paladin, but I can't play a paladin and play with you. Well, that's just stupid. I won't bother then. I actually wouldn't have played. I'm not saying I wouldn't have played it since. Maybe I would. Maybe I'd have tried it out. But obviously, so having faction separation in PvE, obviously for PvP you've got to, in some respects, but for PvE, it stops people playing together, and therefore, you know, it can lose you players, and it does lose you players, because when guilds have decided to go Horde, from Alliance to Horde, or just when lots of players have decided to go from Alliance to Horde and guilds have collapsed, they've just stopped running. Whenever that happens, you always get a few players who just stop playing the game. Whenever a guild collapses, or, you know, when it transfers faction, that's the same thing as collapsing. You always get a few players that just decide, rather than go elsewhere, they just decide to stop. So it's bad for the business, and it doesn't make sense storyline-wise either. But that being said, some people feel very strongly that it should be retained. But, you know, it's all nonsense. But anyway, so yeah, I replied to that. But people do, it's one of those hot button issues. People feel very strongly for and against, and there's a load of people in the middle who don't care, I suppose. They should add link to Transmo from Classic to Live. Right, so yeah, so this is what I was talking about. Let me see if I can post a link to where I said something. I should actually put some effort in... I can't find my... Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting my head around this. I haven't posted very much on these new forums. Let me see if I can link to it. How do I post a link? Share a link to this post. There we go. Cracking. Right. Obviously, different people have different views on this subject. It's another one where people are going to have different views. But the problem I have with it is Blizzard's argument. If Blizzard present an argument that I disagree with, that's okay. I disagree with it, but you know what? They're the ones who make the decision. Totally fine with that. Relatively fine with that. When they say something that's bullshit, when they give a bullshit reason, I do not appreciate that. I don't like it. Because when they're giving us bullshit answers, that's like them saying either they don't think we've got the intelligence to understand the real reason, or they think that the real reason is something they can't admit to, or they don't have a real reason, they're just doing it for whatever reason. And so this reason about it being special, they're sort of talking about... oh, you know, we don't want to... The word's actually used. We don't want to diminish how special that gear was for the people who originally collected it. It's horseshit for several reasons. One, I collected all that gear, but I don't have it all now because I deleted it before Transmog came in, or before the wardrobe came in, more importantly. So, I've lost those even. But secondly, it's only special because they removed that content. I worked even harder for the gear I obtained in TBC because I was in a much better guild in TBC. I was competing at a much higher level, world rank wise. And so therefore I worked harder for it. But anyone can go back and get those items. Anyone. You can go back and get the Warglaves of Azinoth right now. Not that I had those, I was a paladin. But all the stuff I worked really hard for and got, anyone could go back and get it. What's so special about 2004 to 2006 content? They got rid of it, and the way I would put it is Blizzard hated it so much that they removed it from the game. So why on earth should the gear be special? Retail and Classic should not be linked. It doesn't matter who worked harder. Point is people earned it and kept it from then until now. Yeah, but what about the stuff I earned and kept from TBC, though, Gareth? Anyone can go back and get that. Why is that different? Why should people be able to go back and get stuff from, Karazhan or Gruul's Lair or Black Temple or Sunwell Plateau? What's the difference? In fact, people can go back and get the stuff from Molten Core, Blackwing Lair, and Courage. They just can't get it from Naxxramas, or they can't get it from that little quest in Eastern Plaguelands, because it's not there. That's all there is to it. It's not special. Anyway, let's go back and get some people keep commenting on that. I'll just go back and try and catch some of the earlier things. Right, hold on. So you started out as Alliance, but your friends were Hordes, you switched. Best thing you ever did. Ooh. No, it's never a good thing to go Horde. I mean, I'm still Horde, obviously, but, you know, it's disappointing. I am actually going to have to go on some Alliance characters, though. I need my Alliance characters for... I've been writing today a little thing for, like, a Christmas thing. It's a World of Warcraft version of A Visit from St. Nicholas poem. So, yeah. So I'm going to have to try and then get some footage, which I'm going to need my Alliance characters for. I may actually sneak my Horde Paladin into it if I can. I can sort of think of a way maybe to do it. Where was I? You hear a lot of negativity on Warforged and Titan Forging. Does that feeling carry over into the Mythic Raiders scene? Oh no, Mythic Raiders hate it. Absolutely hate it. Where War Forging and Titan Forging... Actually, War Forging, no. People are okay with War Forging in Mythic Raiding. It's Titan Forging that's the problem. Where people are more likely to be okay with it is actually more casual players. Because more casual players aren't really hurt by it and can potentially gain from it, is the way they think about it. It's Mythic Raiders that hate it, most of all. And the higher up they are, the more they hate it. The more advanced they are in terms of cutting-edge content, the more they hate it. Because there's so many problems it causes. It causes problems where the most hardcore players will end up getting Titan Forge gear, and therefore when they kill the final boss in a place, it might not even drop loot that's an upgrade for them. They're sort of going, oh, I don't really need that. And also, you know, you sort of feel that you have to do so much extra content for the chance of Titan Forging as well. Especially with Mythic plus Dungeons being a thing. Anyway, let's get back. Missing so many things. Any updates for Rets? They haven't put them on yet. I am expecting another change. A very specific one. But it's not there yet. So, I don't know. I hope they haven't forgotten about it. Well, they won't have forgotten about it. But I mean, I hope they're not intended to not put it on. But they haven't put it on. You can't go back and get the original Amani Warbear. Well, no. I actually didn't want that in the end. You know, I kept giving that away to people's alts and stuff like that. There's probably people that have got multiple ones of those. Because I actually didn't like it. But the gear you can get... Do I recommend buying Somerset expansion ESO? Yeah, I always recommend buying every expansion in ESO. It's all extra content. It's all good. Does forging hurt the race? I don't think there's any evidence it hurts the race as such. It's more that it's an extra hassle for the raiders because they're having to do more content, more types of content than they really want to do. When's the patch coming out? It is coming out next week, in a week's time. 1 week's time. Next week. Patch 8.1. Hence the background here with the Darkshore event. With Malfurion growing a pair of balls at last. BFA has been the worst expansion ever. Ooh, let's not say things we can't take back. You've never quit so quickly after clearing Mythical Deer. You were just done. It's a disappointing expansion. I don't know. I wouldn't describe it as the worst. I suppose it depends how you define it. I mean, Warlords of Draenor, bearing in mind, didn't really have anything once you got to level cap. All it had was the raiding. But the raiding was good, so I was happy enough. Didn't really have anything else. So I don't know. I mean, BFA has definitely got more than Warlords of Draenor. Oh, hello, sorry. What am I doing? Maybe a chance to proc DS as HP free. Oh, well, that already exists. William, that's a trait. That's a new trait. Also does more damage. Unless that's what you're talking about. Have I done a BFA review? I can't remember. I think I was going to, and I can't remember whether I did or didn't. Be a bit of a funny time to do it now, wouldn't it? You just found a group of parents like you on Alliance. You've just gotten 4 out of 8 Mythic. Alliance isn't all that bad. Well, it depends on your opportunities, though. I mean, it is. You know, if you're sort of more competitive, you have a vastly reduced number of guilds available to try and join at any one time. So, and if you like, it's like a bit of a trifactor. So if you're Alliance and you wanted to get into a decent cutting edge guild that has the same schedule that's compatible with you, and you're, say, playing a spec that is not hugely desirable, you create a situation where if you're looking at any one time, there might literally be 0 guilds looking. You know, when I went Horde, that was because at that point, towards the end of Legion, at that specific point, there were, and I'm not kidding, 0 Alliance guilds looking for a Ret Paladin at the level I was prepared to play. 0. That was all there was to it. It wasn't like, oh, well, you know, there's this guild and that guild, but I actually quite like this Horde guild. No, there were 0 Alliance guilds. Oh, not having jewellery crafting. I've hardly actually worked on my jewel crafting for ESO, actually. But, again, I'll just play it, potter about on it every now and then. You dread playing right now, nothing to do. Oh. It's always something to do. But, you know, I mean, I don't know what you're expecting next week, though. I suppose it depends on what content you do. I mean, there's an extra little bit of a storyline. That might take you an hour. You know, obviously islands are changing up, aren't they? Have there been any early patch notes released? No, they don't do that. They said a while ago, I can't remember when it was now, it was a while ago, they said that they're going to put more effort into doing patch notes and then didn't. I think it might have been Legion. I think it might have been a couple of years ago. But, so no, they're not very good at updating us as a PTR goes through. Again, to me, it just smacks of the disorganisation in the development teams that they can't keep an updated set of patch notes during a PTR, that they just do it at the end. How do you get the 385 versatility trinket from Alchemy? I don't know. I don't know much about... I don't know, actually. Again, this is the problem, me going casual now. I haven't leveled up another character to do alchemy or anything like that. Am I planning on doing more ESO videos? I sort of am, actually. But really, in terms of linking it to World of Warcraft, rather than just in themselves. I am going to be streaming. Again, my schedule over Christmas is... I can't really predict it at the moment. But I am likely to be streaming some different games. I want to play some different games. And potentially, I might even stream a different game every day. As I feel up to it. You think there's a good bit to do, but it's unrewarding and boring content. Well, I mean, yeah, obviously what's boring for some people is subjective. That being... Because, I mean, someone made, you know, a point. I need to do a video on this, really. Someone was saying that they don't understand why people find BFA boring because they compared it to Legion. They said, well, what's the difference, really? And I think what it is for me is it's about perceptions. I don't think BFA is fundamentally more boring in terms of its content than Legion. I think it's just that with Legion, it was new. You know, people get bored of things and they want new things. That's why the people who flip from game to game to game. And so with BFA, they want new things in it compared to Legion because maybe they're bored of the Legion stuff. And some people are not, and that's fine. But some people are. And so because BFA, the new stuff is islands and warfronts. And if that's not fun for you, then it's like there's nothing new. You didn't know there was a 385 trinket? You thought it stopped at 300? I don't know. I could look it up, but I wouldn't know at the moment. Maybe I should do another Lord of the Rings video, get to number 2 on the channel. No, they didn't do that in the end, the series I started on those. And that was just a freak event. That's a freak event. I never predict, the videos I do that end up taking off, I never predict it. I have had a couple of weird milestones this week, in fact, because I got my first video to 1,000 likes, and that at least is my... I'm just checking for another one, actually. No, not quite. That's my rec guide for BFA, so that was nice. But generally speaking, the videos that do well, I would never believe it of those videos there. I never think they're going to. And sometimes videos that I think might appeal end up not at all. I'm useless at trying to gauge what is and is not going to be good. And I also just this week got to 5 million views since I've been starting the channel. It's got more than 5 million views, but since I've started doing the channel, as in to actually put it out there. Apparently islands are much improved in 8.1. Well, they've changed the way, like, they've made it clearer how you're going to get the cosmetic rewards, I think. So I think some people will appreciate that. I don't know that the experience itself is going to be, but as I'm not exactly an islands connoisseur, I wouldn't like to comment on that. The solution, make all the videos. Do you know what? Every week I review my list of videos to make. See, the problem is I come up with more ideas for videos than I can possibly do. And which is why and you sometimes, like, I could easily just pick the wrong one. So I just pick the ones I most want to do. But, you know, they're not necessarily the ones that people most want to watch. I do have hopes for my Christmas special. It's only a short one. But anyway. Less focus on mindlessly rounding up mobs and kill. Yes, yeah, I appreciate that with the changes, yes. You love what Islands and Warfronts could become. A PvP LFG option would be nice. For Warfronts, yes, I think a PvP version would be quite nice. But I don't know. I've got more hopes for Warfronts than I have for Islands. I mean, I was immediately worried by Islands when Blizzard in Alpha was saying that they don't really know what to do with Islands. It was just quite clear that Islands was, oh, we've got this technology, we can make smart NPCs. And they just thought of something to use it to try out the technology. I think they've got grander plans for that technology. Well, they have got grander plans for it, because obviously the Arathi Basin thing they're bringing out is a grander plan for it. That actually sounds like a pretty nice piece of content, I have to say. It's like PvP for people who don't like PvP, isn't it? I quite like the idea of that Arathi Basin where it's against smart NPCs. Or like smart fake players. You like the idea of island PvP? It would be a more interesting version of Arena, couldn't it? You could think of it as like that, like more interactive version of an arena. I like that. I mean, okay, I don't like the idea of PvP in World of Warcraft, but as PvP goes, I would like the idea of island PvP as well. But Warfront PvP, I think, is one where they could really have a go at it and try and bring in that siege element to it. It's still quite limited, but you could. You don't have any new discussion points around all the things you want from the game seems to be things Blizzard isn't interested in working on. What would that be? Player housing? No, they're not at all interested in that, are they? You want a more immersive world by adding dynamic events. And yeah, they're not interested in doing that, are they? And reasons to explore. But better class design by returning class to their original fantasy and adding back spells. Well, yeah, they're not going to do that. You want to know how they teach their island NPC AI? One of the fire mages on the PTR spell stole your freedom. I see. I don't know what I mean, obviously, I don't know anything about game design. How I imagined it working when they first announced it at BlizzCon. This was before I tried it out or anything. I sort of thought to myself, is it really smart, or is it just that they've got a much expanded range of abilities, and it's still largely random what they do? So obviously, yes, spell stealing freedom is a bit of a suggestion. It's not that smart. It's just got a wider range of abilities. And sometimes it will do something useful with it, and sometimes it won't. You'd like the idea of islands working like rifts, like a Mythic Plus system there. I mean, there's scope for islands. It's just my issue is, as I say, they said back in Alpha they didn't know what to do with islands, and I'm still not convinced they really do. I see islands as a stepping stone. It's like a prototype for the smart NPC stuff. You know, and it's a bit like we're trying this out to then do something grander. It's a little bit like in MOP. The farm in MOP was the prototype for the garrisons. And I feel that islands are the prototype for something else. You know, a wider range of NPCs. And I can see how you could use smart NPCs. For example, you could use smart NPCs in LFR. Rather than waiting ages to queue up for LFR, it could put some smart players in to make up the numbers. And then if someone else, so that way people aren't waiting around for a tank or a healer or something like that. And then if other people queue up, it can get rid of the smart NPC and bring the player in. There's a lot of scope for what they could do with smart NPCs. You know, if they got them working well. There's so many things they could do with it. But of course, the other thing is it could easily just be a prototype technology for a future game. You know, it might be that World of Warcraft is just testing ground for technology for games they're going to be working on. But maybe not. Maybe it is just all for WoW stuff. The concept for procedurally generated content is good, not to replace content, but to flesh out the number of things to do and something that has longevity. Well, I mean, that's the dream for them. I mean, they've said so openly for quite a while. You know, people are obviously going to consume content at a faster rate than it can be produced. So what they ideally want to do is to, you know, be able to generate what appears to be slight variations of the same content. The only NPC that Duke's rebuke is the arcane healer dude, the guy with the blood funnel heal and the arcane bubble. Every other NPC just eats the interrupts. Do I think islands are better or potentially better than scenarios from MOP? See, I don't do islands because I was not impressed with them in terms of the finished result. It's a tricky one. I think islands would be more fun if you played with people, you know, or for me, if I was just playing, if it was just messing about with people I knew, just having a laugh, I'd be quite happy to do a whole evening of islands if I was just like chatting on Discord or something with people I knew. That'd be fine for me. But as a piece of content in itself, I don't find it that much fun. You'd like to see a 1v1 dueling system. Why? Dueling was the bane of my life during, like, vanilla. I mean, that was something that kept happening on the classic demo as well. You can't quest anywhere. Someone just stops and wants to duel you. Piss off. They had a gold mine with the Mage Tower scenarios. They should expand on that and normalise. Oh, right. Not your item level for that type of content. Well, that's, yeah. The Mage Tower was really good. And I can see them. Well, I can't actually see them doing it again for this because they don't want to do. But I can see it being really good if they did. Because you look how popular it was. It remained popular from when it first came out all the way through. But that's because, I think two things. One, it was giving out a reward that you knew, and they said right from the start, you are not going to be able to do this once the pre-patch for the next expansion comes out. Long before they even announced the next expansion, they were saying this is only going to be available for a limited time. So that sense of urgency helps. And then the fact that it was giving something that was highly desirable, cosmetic gear. What do I think about the new islands loot changes? I think it's better for people who want to do islands for the cosmetic rewards. I think it's undoubtedly better. I think they've improved quite a lot of systems for 8.1. You know, they've improved, they're going to be improving, I should say, the way we get Azerite gear from Mythic Plus dungeons, for example. But the issue is, like, do we applaud it or not? Because it's an improvement, but at the same time, you could argue that it's no better than it should have been right from the start. Casters seem strong in islands to you now and melt through most people. Do they still do it in 8.1? You have to ask someone else that I don't know. If intentionally, wonder if they've done it so you couldn't kite people like people were doing in Mythic Plus. I mean, I don't know how strong anything is in islands, realistically, as long as you stay together. But that was only in my experience from playtesting in the alpha and beta. I haven't played it since it's gone live. Don't do it. Feels kind of like a list of, if player does X, NPC casts Y, but even then it's still interesting to see how they're trying to advance it. If anything, at least they don't roll over and die. No, I think they've got a wider range of abilities. I'm not quite sure again on the logic. I'm sure there is some logic. I don't think it's literally, because at first I was thinking, is it just a whole load of abilities? And it's a bit like playing Dungeons and Dragons. Roll a d12 to see what they actually do. I don't think it's quite like that. I think there's some logic in it, but obviously it's going to need refining. I don't think it's perfect. You hate limited time rewards, but they're motivating though. Casual players love to go back and do old content if the rewards are good enough. Yes, they do. And it's important that some of them are available to go back. But here's what I would say. Like, everyone says that Warlords of Draenor was a terrible expansion. There was nothing to do. It wasn't actually true. There was actually plenty to do. I would argue that the stuff that there was to do was not rewarding. That was the problem with it. You know, the way they attempted to reward us was with Apexis crystals and later on barrels of oil. That's not interesting. Whereas in Legion, the same content that people decried in WoD, people didn't have an issue with in Legion because the rewards were better. It felt more valuable. I think that was ultimately it. So I think it's how you reward people. And the Mage Tower had a reward that everyone wanted, but importantly, they had that timer ticking, which basically said, you've got a limited amount of time to do this. Otherwise, towards the end, you know, when people were suddenly madly, and I could tell, I knew that at the start, when the Mage Tower first came out, there were a load of people trying it, and I knew that it was steady throughout, and then I knew that there were a right load of people doing it right at the end. And the way I know that is because my rec guide for the Mage Tower suddenly got a huge surge in views towards the end when it was getting into the last month. So there was suddenly a load of people wanting to do it on either their mains or alts or whatever before it finished off. Now, if it was not time limited, they wouldn't have done. They'd have said, well, I'll wait till I get to 120 and then I'll just go back and it'll be easy, won't it? I'll just stand in everything and kill it in like one shot. So I think there's definitely a place for the time limited stuff, especially of the sort that the Mage Tower is. And it will be amazing to me if they don't do another version of the Mage Tower, because I don't understand why anyone would produce a very popular piece of content and then not wish to replicate it. Hard to credit Blizzard for 8.1 when 8.0 was so half-baked. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the issue, isn't it? You don't want to be like, too dismissive of it because they've put effort into it. But what they've put effort into is the dog's breakfast that they served us when the expansion launched. You want new PvP content ideas like chariot racers. Do you know what? Yeah, okay, right. Gimmicks like that, I think, actually could work in WoW, like little games like that. See, one thing that people, talk about, there's some people here, I'm sure, when they talk about like PvP in Star Wars: The Old Republic, Hot Ball, things like that. I'm not actually keen on that. That being said, I think things like that could work in World of Warcraft. So chariot racing actually is not a bad idea, like a demolition derby. The only slight thing is we don't really have chariots in World of Warcraft, do we? It's not really a thing in World of Warcraft, is it? It'd be much more like the steam tanks and stuff, wouldn't it? But the idea of a demolition derby with, Azeroth appropriate vehicles could be fun, but as a little gimmick, I think. Because the problem with that sort of content, it's like vehicle content. You're not using your character's abilities. You'd have a whole range of other abilities. So it wouldn't be for everyone. And also for the people, it might not be the sort of thing that... Maybe they should do it like the Trial of Style, where it's only available for a certain time. I don't know. You could attach spikes to the wheels at just the right height to decapitate gnomes. You'd have to go through the whole bodywork, though. Oh, hi, Will. Thank you very much. More quick video edits on the smaller vids. What do you mean? Say that again. Like in different words, not exactly the same again. I can read it there. More quick video edits on the smaller vids. You mean you want me to do shorter videos? Like 5-minute videos? If that's the case... sometimes I do actually quite, I behave myself. If I script a video, it will usually come in at the 5 to 10 minute mark, which is what, people like. My problem with that is it takes a while to script and then read it out. I'm not a great natural narrator, and but when I just talk about things, I can ramble on. That's a problem. Oh, Danny, no. Blood Mallet for Azeroth traits tells you the best ones for those that need help. No, it doesn't. No. Do not use Blood Mallet. Do not use any site like that. They don't. They do not. There's two main problems with sites like that. The biggest problem is it doesn't tell you what are the best traits for you. It tells you what are the best traits for the character that they created, which is not your character, in a specific scenario, which may not be the scenario you're going to use it for. And the second problem is then not always updated. So sometimes even for that limited character, it may still not be right because they don't actually update it very frequently. The problem is, I can understand people wanting to go to a place that's like a one-stop shop. But you have to understand, when you do that, when you go to a place that claims to have information on every class, you're getting it from a place that doesn't actually understand the stuff themselves. They're like curators. They're just collecting it all together. The thing to use, and I am going to do a video on this in the next week. I'm going to try and get it done this weekend. The thing to use is raid bots. There is now, I could understand a year or so ago, people not really wanting to sim things themselves because Simcraft is a little bit unwieldy. But given that Raid Bots has a nice, easy user interface, Hero Damage, same thing. I hadn't even heard of Hero Damage until this week and someone was telling me about it. That's no different. All these sites are not going to give you the information you need. It would be different if there was a hierarchy of traits and it's like this one's best and this one's second best and so on, right? But that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist anymore. What's the best for you may be different to what's the best for someone else playing the same class in the same content at roughly the same level. Because if you've just got slightly different bits of gear, like depending on your other two Azerite traits, what's best for the third slot could be different for the same content. You've really got to... And it's so easy with raid bots, but I am going to do a video. I'm sure there are other ones. I could do a top 10 most annoying top 10 videos on YouTube. I'm not watching the whole of YouTube just to find... Because that's how I would do it, by the way. When people say, oh, top 10, like, you know, whatever, I expect them to have reviewed every single one. I could only do a top 10 most annoying videos on YouTube if I'd watched every single video on YouTube. I'm not doing that. Oh, your Simi traits, good, yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Those programs, they're like, they're a trap. And it's no necessarily disrespect to the people trying to run them, because they might be trying to help, but they're not helpful. They're not at all. So you've got to do it yourself. This is, I mean, there was a few years ago, people looked at like you could do a top 100 most annoying rep videos. Well, yeah, you watch them all. I get about 2 minutes into. In fact, I'm doing well if I get 2 minutes into most of those videos that people link in the Discord channel. I do my head in. So anyway, so that's a look. So Azerite armor from Mithrax and G'huun. The outer traits on Defile Laboratorium Helm and Chitin Spine are blah blah blah. If you want to use them as your array armor, then yeah. Well, the Mithrax shoulders are going to get one of the new traits on it, of course. And there's what helm is it? It's not the G'huun helm, is it? That's getting one of the new ones. I think isn't it the Mother helm that's getting one of the new ones? Can't remember which way around. I had it written down, but can't remember where I put it now. Hero damage started out as rogue specific, still fairly accurate for rogues. Well, yeah, I mean, if the person running it understands a class or something like that, it's very likely to be decent. But it's still, yeah, I thought it was the Mother helm, yeah. It's still, and I don't know why I know it's the Mother helm, because I don't raid. It's got no interest to me. What annoys me is, oh no, actually, I have a piece of Azerite gear at the moment, which has the Divine Storm trait on it at the moment, so that'll change to a new one. I don't have one with Zealotry, I don't think. And I don't have an Indomitable Justice trait either. So there are some, I think I may have to save up. The problem is at the moment, I'm not getting regular Mythic Plus. Like, I haven't been able to do a Mythic Plus dungeon this week. Really bad. My so-called group were playing bloody Call of Duty this weekend. So I didn't get to do a plus 10. Right annoying. So it's going to be a struggle for me to actually save up enough to be able to choose my Azerite piece. You give raid bots $10 a month. Oh yeah, I mean, you don't have to pay for it. Like, what I would recommend is, if you're not going to pay for it, try and use it at off-peak times, I would say. I mean, I'm a patron because it's way more convenient. And it's worth it as well. It's worth supporting, even if I didn't have to. Mithrax is actually really easy to try and pug. See, I've got no chance of getting into a pug because I don't have the head of the curve. You know, I'm sure Mithrax is it. In fact, I remember I've play tested these on Alpha and Beta, so I know the fights. Well, actually, I say I know the fights. That's a slight lie. I don't necessarily know how to play Netball in G'huun because I wasn't really used to do that even when I was playtesting it with my guild. But as long as people would be cool me not doing that, I can do any fight in Uldir on heroic level. I just, you know, I know, you know what I feel about pugs, and if you don't, then I don't like pugs. Call of Duty Widow, effectively, yeah, effectively I am, because I wouldn't play it myself. Just queue for Elefartal. I don't need to queue for Elefartal, and I know how to do those fights. But I wouldn't get into a group anyway, and I really wouldn't like it. They've recently added the Vampire Coast to Total War Warhammer, so you should play that really to mix up from WoW. So yeah, I don't want to play any new games. The ball running on Gahun is the easiest part. Well, anything's easy once you know how to do it. Like, you know, there'll be people in here that are saying all of the Uldir fights, even on Mythic, are easy because they've now learnt the skills. They've learnt how to do them. But yeah, I have little doubt that it's not the hardest skill to learn because, you know, it's required to beat the fight by multiple people. It's just not everyone has to do it. And let's be honest, if you're going to have a ret, you might as well have the ret killing stuff in the middle. To be honest, regardless of the skill lineups of classes, global cooldown is ruining the initial interface between the gamer and the game. Well, they're supposed to be removing global cooldowns from movement abilities, aren't they, at least? But I haven't been on the... Actually, have they had a new build on the PTR recently? Because it wasn't there last time I checked. I'm pretty sure I went on the PTR last weekend. In fact, I know I did because I was getting some footage. But anyway, people stacking haste and reducing the GCD to 0.6 seconds insane, but currently the game is just too slow. 1.5 seconds unacceptable. 1.5 seconds is a bit much. Hold on. Oh, there's a PTR update right this moment. Okay. I'll download that and see. Has there been a new build then for PTR, or is it just a small thing? It was only off for abilities that were off the global cooldown Legion. Now, that's not what they said, though. He said movement abilities. He clearly said movement abilities. So he's lied again. Because I took special note. But it's not the first time he's lied, and it won't be the last. Did they ever give an explanation for the global cooldown? Do you mean a sensible one? Or they did give an explanation, which seemed to change every time they gave it, and none of them were sensible. Hi, Elsu. Yeah, you have meetings. I have meetings on Tuesdays as well. That's why I was in a bit of a special rush today, trying to get back. You get to the search for group list for Mythic Plus, then lose all interest in doing it. I can't get into a pug anyway. I mean, I can't. They wouldn't let me with my IO, Mythic Plus IO. But it doesn't matter. I really don't want to do it anyway. Example of the difference between Raid Bots and Blood Mallet. Blood Mallet says Expunge is bad. Because of how your stat distribution falls, you get a DPS increase. Yeah, this is it, Artanis, exactly. You know, your character is different to other characters, even at the same item level of the same class and spec, doing the same content. You know, there are different. I mean, obviously, there are some traits that if someone just said to you, "Is this trait good?" and they told you what they were going to use it for, you'd be like, "It's not really the best." And there'll be some traits that would be, "Yeah, that's quite good." But which is actually going to be best for you? You are just far better off using raid bots. Always sim yourself, absolutely. And as I say, it is easy to do now. You know, people have always been able to sim themselves, but it's now super easy to do. It's potentially just that people don't realise just how easy it is to do. So I will do a video on it this week. I'm trying to think, what other videos have I got down to do this week? I mean, basically, there's a few little guides I've got planned for the next couple of weeks. I haven't done a Hakili guide for BFA actually yet, I've realised. So I should do that, because that has changed since Legion. So I need to update that one. And what else needs updating? I suppose I should do something on Ret Azerite traits for BFA. My problem with that is that whenever I decide to do it, they'll change it the following week. Because they're pains in the ass. Absolute pains in the ass. Super easy. SimC control. Oh yeah. Having the Simulation Craft add-on is also the way to go with it. But there are options in raid bots that people aren't aware of. So I'll do my video going through those as well, like advanced options for array or not. Because obviously, if you do Mythic Plus Dungeons, you don't want to raid there. But I mean, even for talents, it's not even always about Azerite traits. Sometimes what talent is best for you depends on your character. You can change your gear around. It might be a different talent. You've done that at Rec Pal. You're currently at about 13k DPS. Yeah, I can't remember what I'm at. Not as high as when all the Mythic Raiders show what they're simming as. Nowhere, nowhere near like that. What are Mythic... Go on, Mythic Raiders in here. What item level are you at the moment? Because I don't actually know what item level people are at. Because I'm not raiding anymore. What's the standard at the moment for someone who's basically got cutting edge in Mythic Raids? What do I think of the Penguin Racing World Quest? I don't know what to think of the Penguin Racing World Quest. Better than shoving a turtle around a bloody maze. 388, 383, that's all right. That's not bad. A lot, you know. A lot higher than me then. That's encouraging. That is encouraging. Because there was a time when people kept complaining that I had a higher item level than people that were doing Mythic Raiding. That obviously seems to have stopped now. I'm only about 375 or something. 374 maybe, I can't remember. So that's good. You're 360. You're 360 with cutting edge? 379 rogue, but the game hates you for drops. Well, as a rogue, it's got a decent chance of hating you, hasn't it? You know, if you're a rogue that needs daggers, there's not many places to get your daggers from, are there? You've got to drop them for yourself, or unless you've got a rogue friend in your raid. 375 rep, 4 out of 8 mythic. But 18k sim DPS. Well, that's it. See, that's interesting. This is what I was trying to say last year, actually, because I remember when I was in Antorus, and there were people saying to me on the stream that they had higher item level than I did, and they only did Mythic plus Dungeons, and I was doing Mythic Raiding. But when I simmed myself, and I simmed one of them just to show, I was simming way higher than they were. And just because of the quality of gear, because the item level doesn't tell you about that. So if you're 375 and you're simming for 18k, I'm not simming for anywhere near that. And I'm on about 374 item level. So the quality of gear, I mean, my trinkets are not the best. Worst quest in BFA goes to the stupid horse jumping one. Yes, I know that one. I hate that one as well. As I'm Horde, I haven't actually had to do it in live. I did it when I was testing, of course, on the alpha and beta. I know I hate that quest with a passion. Because the problem is, you go at it and you work it out and you get good at it, and then you don't. And I didn't come back to it for months after that when I was leveling another character. And then I was crap at it again. Do I think David Attenborough should be cryogenically to extend how long he's with us for? No. Someone else will take his place. It'll all be fine. They replaced Carol Vorderman. They can replace Sir David Attenborough, I'm sure. It took you forever to get the second dagger on Mother. Yes. See, there's some classes I can well imagine completely screwed over by, well, I mean, personal loot's not a great thing for Mythic Raiders anyway. But rogues and hunters particularly get shafted by it because of their weapon choices. Oh, probably enclosed. Actually, that's a point, Skeletor. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Yes, it probably. Yeah, I'm not obviously not simming with the array because that's pointless for me. Yes, good point. Tier made raiders sim higher than eye level difference. Look, yeah, sometimes trinkets as well. You were much more likely to get a decent item level, good trinket. I mean, after the first raid, obviously Emerald Nightmare was a bit crap for trinkets, but after that. They seemed to get better actually as it went on. Some decent ones in Nighthole, but there were some better ones I thought anyway, more interesting ones in Tomb, and then there was some decent ones in Antorus as well. But yeah, so I mean, item level doesn't tell the whole story because there are other effects on them, especially trinkets or set bonuses or Azerite traits that throw the whole thing completely out of whack. You're using Fathom. See, I'm still using Fathoms. But I don't obviously have a vector syringe. I can't even remember. It's something from Mythic Plus, of course. Can't remember what my other trinket is. Because it's so long since I got a trinket. I've been desperate every week for Jess's Howler. And the number of times I've done Tol de Gore as well. And not got Jess's Howler. I'm not happy. Carol Vorderman was one of your childhood crushes along with Deanna Troi and the bear woman from Tailspin. But anyway, all of these people can easily be replaced. Anyway. What have I missed? I don't know. I'm going to have to go too far back to try and miss now. I'm just trying to... Oh, hello. Let's get rid of that. What was the other one? Oh, yeah, that was the other post. I was going back to the beginning. I was talking about posts on the forums. One of them was entitled, "Do Blizzard customers have the ability to report employee bad behaviour?" I think this is related to all that hoo-ha about a certain community manager. Like, how should we say? Falsely punishing someone. But I'm not sure. It might be something else. But there were an awful lot of people posting that. But actually, have they done this on the EU forums yet, what they've done on the NA forums? Because I don't actually look at the EU forums. I might need to make an effort to actually post more on the NA forums. Now that they've got this system where you're going to be rewarded for doing it. Because you look here, right? Because I don't know if people have checked it out. You've got the post, and then just underneath the post, it lists frequent posters. So the more frequently you post, the more likely people are to sort of see you and I suppose click on your reply. You leveled your hunter to 120 now. You've got no desire to gear him. I mean, that was something that I came across in Legion. For the first expansion ever, every time I got an alt to level cap, I couldn't be bothered to level it. Not because I didn't want to do the content that would give it gear. When I say couldn't be asked to level it, I mean item level. It was just because of the enormity of what I would have to do, all the different things. But in reality, I didn't have to do all those things. It was just, you know, the sheer breadth of things that you would potentially have to do. Deanna Troi, the most pointless character ever to be in science fiction. All of them were pointless. Apart from Picard, this is why it does my head in. Everyone always talks about Sir Patrick Stewart, how great an actor he is. He's all right. He's not a great actor. He was just put on set with a bunch of wooden spoons. He just looked good by comparison. They were all useless. Their characters were rubbish. The actors were rubbish. The new Goblin models look like Christmas elves. Well, if you dress them in Christmas gear, they do. They're all right. People have been complaining for new Goblin models. They're getting them now. People are moaning still. And you're waiting for the fancy Worgen model updates to level your Worgen Survival Hunter. See, I mean, I should level another alt at some point. It'd be ridiculous if this expansion is the first expansion where I don't level any alts at all. I mean, it used to be the case. I would level multiple alts and always have at least 2 paladins at level cap. Even in TBC, I had 2 paladins at level cap. And then that sort of stopped in Legion because I didn't even level 1 of each class. And BFA, I'm no more inclined to level alts. Data was supposed to be wooden spoon. Yes, he was. I will give Brent Spiner the nod on the fact that playing it in a wooden way doesn't automatically make him a bad actor. He just, he was supposed to play like that. So I'll give him a pass. He may be a bad actor, or he may just have been well cast. But the others are definitely, because they were so boring. So they just stood there with their hands by the side, no expression whatsoever, and just repeated their lines. All they could do, their entire skill, was just memorising lines. And we don't even know that they memorised lines because it's television, you can do different takes. All they had to do was memorise a few words at a time, and then the camera angle will change anyway, for all we know. They'd had a big old break to learn the next few words. Them's fighting words about Patrick Stewart. No, it's not. I'm not saying he's a bad actor. I'm just saying he's made to look better by incompetent colleagues. You need to see some I, Claudius to see how Stewart is in that. Well, yes, there was a situation where there were an awful lot of good actors in it. In fact, I think pretty much every classical actor was played in that at some point. They lost all their characters. They no longer look like chain-smoking engineers and are now smooth and shiny. Well, they may not be finished, the ones you've seen. Do I think Sean Bean is a good actor? I think he's all right. He's good at dying. He gets plenty of practice in that. I was actually just thinking, because I've been watching, obviously, Game of Thrones recently. And, you know, it's just a meme, isn't he? Like, when I was watching the first series, I knew he was going to die. It was just a case of when. I knew he wasn't going to make it to series 2, because of course not. But the thing he became famous for originally is the only thing he's ever played, as far as I can tell, where he doesn't die. He gets shot, stabbed and smashed all the time and never actually dies. Everything he's been in since, he dies. Usually fairly rapidly. But he does die by the end of it. This is why Orville is better Star Trek. Orville? It's a green duck, isn't it, with a nappy on? What Orville are you thinking of? What's that about? Millie Hunter? Oh, Survival. Yeah, I know. I don't. It was annoying that when they made. I can understand why they did it. I mean, that's again going back to what I was saying about when Blizzard explained their reasoning for something. If I disagree with it, you know, at least they've given me their reasoning. What I don't like is when giving me bullshit reason. You know, they gave a reason for Melee Hunters. I accept it. I don't like it. But, you know, there it is. Seth MacFarlane. What about Seth MacFarlane? Is that a reference to Orville? That still doesn't help me. Anyway. Survival Hunter died with Legion. Your favourite Hunter spec died that down. Now they only have 2 specs. He's on the Orville. Right, okay. I don't know at all what this Orville thing is. Orville for me is a name of a person. If it's something else, I don't know what that is. When I say it's the name of a person, more specifically, it's the name of a green duck. But I also understand that it can be a person's name as well. If it's used in any other context, I am not familiar with it. There isn't enough thematically for a ranged bowman to spread over 3 specs. Melee Hunter works fine. Well, yeah, I mean, that's ultimately the problem. Before Legion, the issue was, and they were quite right, the issue was that all the specs were the same. You could use the same binds and you could play them in the same way. It was just slightly different abilities, but they were basically the same. If you could play one, you could play the rest. Very slight variations in them. Which is true. And therefore, them doing what they did, to be fair, make the specs very different to each other. That being said, that's, you know, you would accept that if you believed that the 3 specs should have played differently to each other. I didn't. I am not someone who feels that different specs should be thematically different, as you say there. I think that classes should be thematically different and that specs should actually be quite similar because they should take their theme from the class and they should have different strengths and weaknesses, and obviously that's going to mean different abilities. But the theme should be the same, because the theme should come from the class, not the spec. But Blizzard feel differently, so that's why we have what we have now. It's a semi-serious parody show on Star Trek. Oh, I see, okay. I'm not, so okay, I've never seen that then. You thought Survival Hunter in BFA was the best spec in the game. See, I haven't played it in BFA. My Hunter is just going to be Beastmaster. I've always liked Beastmaster. I mean, it's really good for soloing for a start off. And given that it's usually also fairly decent for like dungeons and stuff. Yeah. People are grasping when one considers there are 2 perfectly viable range specs still available for Hunters. There are. But the thing is, I suppose as well, when people get attached to little things, so when they massively change a spec, they obviously are going to risk, disenchanting some people, because then that spec will lose the thing that they liked about it. Is it sad that the main thing you're excited about is 5 seconds longer wings and exploding when you spend holy power? No, I'm going to quite like that in Mythic Plus. That, that sounds quite nice. I'm trying to actually think if I can't now think if I have access to that. I don't think I have access to that trait, actually. I think the trait that my current gear will have on it when the patch comes out will be the one with the free Divine Storm, which I'm also looking forward to. For Mythic Plus, I like the sound of both of the new traits. The free Divine Storm is nice. I think that's going to be quite nice. It would be nice to see a support role for classes, particularly those locked into solely DPS roles. I do as well. I see no reason to have 3 pure DPS specs for a single class. It's pointless. There's no need for it. Especially if you're not even going to make them have different uses. If you're not even going to do that, what's the bloody point? I just think their whole view of class design is completely messed up. Not the competence of carrying things out, but their actual view of how it should be done is messed up. Tinker. Will still people stop talking about bloody Tinkers? They will never do a Tinker type class. No. Support class, yes. Not a bloody Tinker. It just sounds too much like a gnome. The most baffling change is the stupid baby wings added in TV. Yeah, I don't like those at all. Do not like those. I mean, fortunately, a lot of the time I can ignore it because I'm zoomed out. But I do catch hold of it every now and then. I just see it and go, why? Why do I have to have those? It should at least give me the option. Give me the option when you bring a new animation. I keep saying, give me the option. Or, like I also say, if they want people to do more content, put it as a reward behind an achievement, and I just won't do that achievement. You have this itching feeling that both of the new traits are going to be mandatory. Free DS and an AoE on your main DPS CD. I'm not sure. I need to resim them, but I'm not sure it's going to be compulsory to have them both. I mean, maybe for Mythic Plus. I'll have to have a look. But, Indomitable Justice should be useful as well. I mean, it depends on what what content you're doing and what traits you're taking as well. Is it day in the UK? No, it's not. It's dark. It's dark whenever... Oh, my God. I had such a scary time on Friday, actually, driving back. Oh, my God. I have to tell you about this. This was horrendous. I have never shat myself so much in my life. I've been in dodgy situations where I've kept calm. This time, I lost all semblance of calm. I was driving back from Hull, a city some distance away. And when I set off, because I had to go to a hospital appointment, came back, and it was light when I set off back, but it got dark as the journey went on. So I'm on the motorway coming back towards Scunthorpe, which is where I live. And as it's getting dark, you know, I'd turned the headlights on. And I suddenly noticed that as cars were passing me, their headlights were spilling over into my lane. And I thought, that's a bit funny. What's going on? I thought, is there something wrong with my headlights? And then, as more did it, I became convinced my headlights were buggered. And it looked to me like it was both of them. And I thought, shit. Because at that point, you're not going to get a bulb go, two of them at once. And they were definitely working a few days before I checked. So it's two of them. I thought, shit, that's a fuse or something. And I thought, does that mean my tail lights are gone? I didn't know what's on this circuit. I thought, so my tail lights as well? Oh, shit. And I missed my turning, which meant the turning I had to take off was going to be very unfamiliar to me. Very unfamiliar. And I pulled off. No one else pulled off. Because at this point, I'm being illuminated by other people's headlights. As I pulled off, it was complete darkness. And it curved round onto another motorway. And there was nothing there at all. No other vehicles. And no lighting on the road. I was in complete darkness. The only light I was getting, because the side lights were working, but that was piss poor. And there was my indicators. I kept my indicators on for a little bit. And my heart was racing. I didn't know what the right thing to do was. I thought, if I try and pull over and ring for like RAC or something, I don't even know where to say I am. And I don't even know where to pull over. I don't even know if I can pull over because I couldn't see anything. And my heart was just racing. Oh, shit, I'm going to die. And then I calmed down after about a minute, stopped panicking and thought, what about my full beams? Do they work? Tried those. They worked. Thought, thank fuck for that. So I actually had light. Until I got back in amongst traffic again, in which case, obviously, I had to turn those off. But then at least I had the illumination of other cars. So I was very glad to get back. That was scary as hell. But yes, at the moment it's dark. And also cold. I had to de-ice my car this morning for the first time this year. Anyway, let's get back onto WoW. Even more variants. Rogue tank spec. What combat outlaw should be. Or an ability to burst window tank for whatever. That sort of thing, yeah, is fine. What I would like to see, we've talked about this before here, is if Blizzard are going to insist on screwing over melee in raid fights, give every single class a range spec. Every single one. Then if people decide that they want to commit to melee and they don't want to play the ranged option, well, that's up to them. But at least you give them an option. Like, if there was Shockadin, if there was a ranged Paladin option, all right, I'd still prefer playing Ret, but I would play the ranged option where I had to. I would learn how to play it, and I would be able to switch to it as necessary. I'd be okay with that. Because it's still sort of the same role. It's still DPS. I'd do that. Hi, Van Bretta. So, that is... that's what I would be thinking of. Warrior can just chuck axes. Chuck axes. We've already discussed this at length. Warrior can throw axes. Rogues can be like the demon hunters in Diablo. Crossbows. Boom, boom, boom. Chain of crossbows. You know. Paladins can... You know, they don't even have to come up with new specs. Paladin... I've said this before, although I upset a load of Shadow Priests for saying it. Paladins could have a Shadow Priest spec. In fact, someone sort of suggested it, didn't they, on here a few weeks ago. You could just basically give them Shadow Priest spec, change all the abilities to light instead of shadow stuff, make it all golden instead of blackish purpley, and you've got yourself a functioning spec that you can use for a Paladin. This should have ranged... If they are not going to like design raid encounters to allow, like, basically your raid should be allowed to take whatever players you want, right? Of whatever class, and those players should be able to play whatever class they want. I'm not saying whatever spec they want, but they should be able to play whatever class role combination they want. And you as a guild should be able to take your... If it's a 14 DPS fight, you should be able to take your 14 best DPS players that are available. whatever they play. Now, if Blizzard refused to design the encounters to take account of that, then, you know, if Muhammad won't go to the mountain, then you must bring the mountain to Muhammad, mustn't you? So they must give all the classes range specs. That's how to do it. You would trade Blade for Exorcism in an instant. All Exorcism would be Blade of Justice doing holy damage. That's it. That's all it is. Blade of Justice is just Exorcism with holy damage. The only reason they got rid of Exorcism and put that in is because clearly at the time, for whatever reason, I don't know what reason, they wanted a higher balance of physical damage. And I don't know why. I don't know what the problem is with Rets being predominantly holy, or even the vast majority holy damage. You think monks were big mistakes? Well, bringing out so many new classes was a big mistake, given that they want to make all the specs very different. And obviously, bringing out new classes, and every time you brought out a new class, they could only play melee. Every new class that has ever been brought out can only play melee. Every single one. That is a huge, huge cock-up. Beastmastery should be melee? No. Rexxar? No. Beastmastery should be ranged. It's quite right being ranged. Let the pet go off and actually engage the enemy. You hang back and shoot at it. I mean, what they could have done, I suppose, with survival, they could have done it a little bit like there was a class in Warhammer Online which had like a mechanical turret that they dropped, so that could have been like their pet. So because they're all to do with traps, aren't they? Survival and stuff like that. So it could also have been that they're into like extend it a bit more into gizmos, so they drop like a turret. Or maybe even a couple of turrets with a particular talent that can, you know, fire off different abilities. So I think they could have done a third type of ranged hunter, but it would have been very, very different. Wonder if they'll add a new class next expansion. God, I hope not. Seriously hope not. They better realise class like Warden from Warcraft 3, not monks. At the moment, there's just too many. I know Necromancer. Yeah, I've thought of Necromancer. Yeah, that is the problem. The problem with a Necromancer class, I mean, you can take it because obviously that was there from Warcraft 1. So it's viable from that point of view. The problem is that it is very much very warlocky, Death Knighty. It'd be difficult to... Turrets are not tinkers. No tinkers. Tinkers are gnomes. No. Nothing that makes it sound gnomish. A warlock tank where the pet tanked and you controlled it range. Yes, I mean I've thought about that for many years. The idea of giving warlocks a proper tank spec could be. I mean, potentially it could be a bit too fiddly. I don't know, but it's worth thinking about. A Necro would be on a Holy DK, potentially. I mean, you know, you'd make it ranged, though. A Necromancer would certainly have to be a ranged class. The problem is, yes, though, I mean, Warlocks, or you poor old Warlocks, because first of all, Death Knights came out and nicked a load of their abilities. And then Demon Hunters came out and nicked a load more of their abilities. I shudder to think what the Warlock community would say if Blizzard announced the Necromancer class. They'll be thinking, oh, we're not going to have any bloody abilities left at this rate. Tinker sounds like a joke and not a serious class. There's any number of them that sound like that. New race class combo. Ogre Gnome Thrower. Ah. Yes, a gnome launching cannon. Yeah, that might work. Necromancers can be more like Diablo 2 version. Bear in mind. Actually, do you know what? Oh, I haven't played Diablo 2 at all. I think we're talking about the Necromancer in Diablo 3. I haven't actually played Diablo 3. I haven't played the Necromancer in Diablo 3. Maybe I should. I've only played Diablo 3 really a few times. Obviously, I quite like the Templar class in that. Give Warlocks and Mages a tank spec that works up magical body wards, and they can drink tinctures that work like defensive abilities. Yeah, I mean, you can have any role for any class. There's always a way to think it through. But at the moment, I think the greatest need is for all classes to have a range spec. You know, the role that is most screwed over in this game is melee. So having the capacity for a particular class to change to ranged would have the most positive effect. There isn't a shortage of suitable tank classes, and there isn't a shortage of suitable, healing classes. So although there's certainly a case to be made for just giving every class be able to play all 4 roles, I think there's actual serious benefit in allowing everyone to have at least a ranged spec. Do I want the meat wagon mount able to toss gnomes like they do critters? Well, no point asking me that. I'm not getting Warcraft 3. But I like the idea of a gnome launcher of some description. It's a bit like, what was that thing they had? They had that special scope in Cataclysm, didn't they? For hunters that fired gophers or something, didn't it? What was it? Some sort of like ferret type thing. They could do something like that for gnomes. So D3 Necro's Blood, Bone, Soul abilities. That's in is it in Legion? I thought it was Cataclysm. Is it? I don't remember it in Legion. Anyway, this should do one that launches gnomes. Critical. Oh no, okay, there's another one in Legion then. Specifically there was a scope. There was an actual... Oh, yeah, okay, on the wall. Yeah, I know that one. No, I mean, it was actually part of your kit. You used it in Cataclysm. I'm sure it was Cataclysm, because it was that crazy dwarf guy from the comics, that I don't think even run anymore. I've forgotten his name now. And it was actually a scope for your hunter when they had scopes. And it launched critters. Yeah, scope from cat that launches squirrels or something. I can't remember what it launches. I think it's something that's angrier than a squirrel, though. I think it's like a gopher or something. But whatever it is, it launched an animal. So why not launch a gnome? Especially if you had a larger thing like an ogre, could easily launch a gnome. They should take chakrams from Survival and base it on new class inspired by that or by Cruel. I think they should just leave classes in terms of how many there are and work on making them all viable for all the content. Yeah, fix the boring classes you got now instead of trying to come up with new boring classes, exactly. I mean, like I say, Brian Helinka has been flown over specifically to sort class design out. Whether he does it is another matter, whether he's successful in that endeavour. But it does at least show that they accept that how they've gone about it for BFA has been subpar, and that they feel the need for a new manager in that area. So at least things will change. He hasn't been flown over to keep things going as they are. He's been flown over to make changes. So we'll just have to hope that... Obviously, they may not be changes that really materialise much in BFA. It might be more for the next expansion. You'd really love to see all classes armed with 4 specs while giving the new spec either a tank or a heal role. Yeah, I mean, I don't see... I mean, there's no value. If we were designing a game from scratch, I see no value in giving a class 2 specs for the same role. None at all. If we treat melee and ranged DPS as 2 different roles. So if we consider, instead of the Holy Trinity, the holy shit quadrilogy? Don't know. 4. Melee DPS, range DPS, healer, and tank. And if every class had access to all of those roles, then I'd be okay with every class having 4 specs. But only druids have that. Druids are the only class that have that. Maybe a class that does everything on their mobile. Now behave yourself. Do you know what I was almost going to do? Do you know what I nearly did? Just because obviously, I'm not going to be a fan of mobile games. I'm not going to play mobile games. Just to... Trinity is not what you call for when it's 4. It'll be quas something. Anyway. Just to try it out. There's a new game coming out, a new Elder Scrolls game called Blades, and that is coming out for mobile. It was supposed to be out by now, actually, but it's been put back to next year. I almost thought of getting it, but obviously it's not out. So I don't know. Just to try it, but I really would hate the idea of playing a game on a mobile. But just so that I could say I've at least tried it and given it a go. You think a technician class for goblins and gnomes would be sweet. Uses male. Well, it needs to use male. We don't have enough male users at the moment. That's another way hunters have been screwed over. 1, no sod else is going to get a bow, so they're reliant upon getting them themselves, unless there's a hunter friend in their group. And 2, there's not many use male. The only others that use male are shamans. And, oh, isn't it great that all the shaman specs have been really good in BFA so far? Oh, wait. Male's guns and basically just carbon copy of every engineering bombing device for class abilities. Major cooldown is a mech suit. See, I don't like the idea of gnomes getting something like that. Bethesda are trying to win the Clown Prize developer with Fallout 6 Calamity. Yes, they are. Do you know what I've thought about that Fallout 76 Fallout? Aptly named game, isn't it? So I've seen a load of videos recently, because I know one of the bits of hoo-ha was the suggestion that you get this thing made of canvas, and it turned out to be made of polyurethane or something like that. Whatever. So now what they're going to say is we're going to try and source some canvas versions and give people who bought that can fill a ticket in. They've got until the end of January and they'll get a canvas thing. And everyone's talking about it as, Bethesda finally, doing the right thing. I don't see it as that. I see it as them being in up shit creek from a legal point of view as well, because the problem was, as well, correct me if I'm wrong, they sort of announced they were going to allow people to have refunds and then change their mind. But they've offered them. So from a legal point of view, I don't know, that maybe puts them in a bit of a dodgy position. And maybe they've just seen it, that offering people these canvas bags, for people that want them for whatever reason, is cheaper than actually letting people have refunds. Because maybe they now feel that people would actually have a legal entitlement to a refund. So I don't see it as Bethesda doing the right thing. I see it as weighing up their options and deciding this is actually a cheaper way of trying to, sort the situation out. And of course, there'll be some people who won't be bothering to even fill the ticket out. So it's not even that every player would get one of these canvas bags. Because I'll bet you only about 20% of them apply for it. You uninstall the game. Hope it works better in 6 months or so. Don't Blizzard dare take away your choice between Arms and Fury. Don't need them both. You don't need them both. Can have one. I mean, what they could do with Arms and Fury, for the melee choice, they could just let you choose. Like Titan's Grip used to be a talent. They could bring that back. So you get to choose between using a two-hander like Arms or 2 one-handers like Fury. Just, with the talents. and then just have a range spec where you throw axes or swords or whatever, I don't care. Astonishing the incompetence of these big publishers later. It is astonishing. I can't understand it. Because that's what it is as well. It is incompetence. It's not someone misjudging mood. Like anyone, I misjudge mood all the time. Like I've already said with my videos, I have no... When I'm looking at my list of... Each week I probably do 4 or 5 videos. But I have a list of like 20 things, ideas. And I don't actually know which ones are going to be the best ones to do. That's misjudgment. What they do is downright stupid. It's so mind-bogglingly stupid. And the thing that really pisses me off, is I'm thinking, if these guys, you're paying people to do public relations who have got less idea about it than I would, and they're probably being paid more than me. I'm thinking, pay me. I will advise you. I'm not saying I'd be a brilliant PR person, but I would be better and I wouldn't cost as much. It's amazing. You'd like to see some gnome throwing spec? I would, absolutely. You might have a really awkward situation if it was a gnome, if the gnomes could play that class. You have gnomes throwing gnomes. It reminds me a little bit of, there was a Star Wars game and I've completely forgotten what it was now. It was a long time ago. And there was like a PvP version of it. And I was playing a friend of mine once, and I was fighting. It was as I always would. I played something with lightsabers, but my friend was like saying, he was saying I would look really weird. And what it was, there was a bit of a bug from his point of view. And I looked at his screen. It looked like I was a Boba Fett, and I wasn't. But swinging instead of a lightsaber, swinging another Boba Fett around. So it was like Boba Fett swinging Boba Fett around. It confused the hell out of him. A bit like that, gnomes throwing gnomes. A bit like Adam West with the Family Guy thing with his cat launcher. Except this would be a gnome launcher. Big old crossbow. Gnome in the crossbow. Pull it back. Bang. Sack full of gnomes on your back. And then what you could do, you could go, when you'd finish, you could go over and pick up the dead gnomes and put them back in your backpack. Reusable ammo. It's just like they don't care anymore about their players and customers. EA, Bethesda, Blizzard, all getting the same. It is all getting the same. I mean, that's the concerning thing. It is all getting the same. It's almost like a company, when it's relatively small, has to engage with its customer base, and then when it gets above a certain size, just doesn't see the value anymore. It loses a certain amount of personal touch, because obviously you can't get a personal touch with everyone when you grow too big. It's not possible. So they obviously give it up. A video game crash coming soon. No, there'll never be a video game crash as long as people want to play video games. People will just choose to play whatever looks to be the least shit. The problem is this, right? The number one reason we have these situations, we can blame the developers all day long. The reason we have it is because we buy their pre-orders. If we, as a customer base, video game customer base, if we just had the attitude, now you bring the game out and then we'll decide whether it's worth it or not. We'll pay for it when we know we're going to like it. If we had that attitude, you can bet your ass the games would be better quality. Because they'd have to be. Because you'd have a gaming company, let's say they're going to spend $100 million on a title, right? To know that they're not going to get a penny of that back until it releases, and they're not going to make that money back if the first few copies go out and reviews come out and it's shit and everyone else says, no, I'm not buying it. You bet your ass they'll make sure it's a good release, and they will put it back if necessary. So it's our fault for buying pre-orders, ultimately. Because I bought the pre-order of BFA. I am as much at fault as anyone else. It's our fault. It's not their fault. Well, it is their fault, but it's our fault as well. Not only pre-orders, but the insane amount of microtransactions. I mean, yeah, that's another thing. If people buy games that have microtransactions, I'm not opposed to all microtransactions, actually. There's, cosmetic microtransactions, not got a problem with that. Convenience microtransactions, I don't have a major problem with it, as long as that's all it is, convenience. Power microtransactions, that's when you're into dodgy territory. No. The last thing, what's this? Last thing publishers want are fickle consumers, and that is very much gamers these days, most importantly, specifically home gamers. I don't know. But ultimately, yeah, if we have, I mean, players are fickle these days. They want, well, I don't know that it's always been any different, actually. Players want a title, play it for a month, and then play something else. But while we keep falling for their pre-order bonuses, then the same thing's going to keep happening. We're all just idiots. We're all idiots. I mean, all right, if as a player you pre-order a title and that title's crap when it releases and you decide never to buy a pre-order again, fine, that's okay. But if you do it again and you keep doing it and every time you do it you just get mad at the company, it's your own fault. You're doing it. You're basically their enabler. People who buy pre-orders, and that includes me. I do. If there's a title coming out that I want to play, I will buy the pre-order. I will fall for the pre-order bonuses. Because that's how they do it. It's pre-order bonuses. See, pre-orders used to be a good thing because when you needed the physical copy of the game, you might not be able to get it from the shops. They might have sold out and you'd have to wait then. So it guaranteed that you would get it on the release day. Now, there's no problem with that digital download. So now they have to think of other ways to get you to pre-order. And they do that with bonuses that are not available anymore. Like for Elder Scrolls Online, right? The Imperial class, as far as I know, is still unobtainable unless you bought that special version. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's the case. There were other bonuses as well that, aren't relevant now, but I think that was a bonus that's still relevant. I bought the pre-order and I was not impressed when it was released. You are tired of unfinished games being released, but they're obviously going to do it. Like when you lay out a massive amount of money on a game, those shareholders want a return as soon as possible. So they are encouraged to release it as soon as possible. So if they think, and experience teaches them they can release the unfinished game, deal with customer flack, because they've got your money already. They've got your money. I mean, I suppose when it comes to games in general, like obviously MMO is a bit different, Blizzard games a bit different, but some of the games that naturally you'd find available on Steam, if a game doesn't become available on Steam when you'd think naturally it would, that should be a bit of a sign it's going to be released unfinished, because Steam offer refunds within a certain amount of time. You've got so much to play it, and if you don't like it after a few hours, you can get a refund. And that's no good for those sort of companies. Pre-purchasing WoW expansion is a bit different when you know for a fact you'll be playing it even if it's subpar. There is that, and again, I knew I would be playing it. That is true. But at the same time, if nobody bought the pre-order, I guarantee that it would have been released in a better state. From Blizzard's point of view, the rationale is exactly the same. They need to make good their return. If they make money on the expansion before it even launches, where is the compulsion for them to do a good job of the launch? There isn't one. Launch it early and then promise to fix all the things wrong with it. And they'll be promising and then they'll keep promising and promising and promising. And they won't fix all of the things they promise to fix. You don't buy pre-orders or digital downloads, you buy the game when it comes out, and so you buy the physical one. For ESA, the pre-order was a monkey named Ray. No, there was multiple rewards. It depends on the level you got. There were different versions as well. There were quite a few different rewards. You know, one of the rewards, the Imperial class was not there with the standard edition. One of them was that you could play any race as any faction. Now that I think is the case now anyway, because they've obviously changed it a lot since it came out. But at the time, that was only a bonus with the pre-order thing. But as I say, there was more than one there was special editions and stuff like that as well. Which MMO was released perfectly without glitches? Well, no, there's a difference. There's a difference between the odd bug that's bound to slip through and what is clearly an unfinished game. The difference is, if there's the odd bug, the game is still playable. But if it's unfinished, you know, you can actually regard it as not being playable. Take, for example, BFA. It was not possible for Mythic Plus Dungeoneers to be able to have a decent chance of getting getting Azerite gear. That was just something missing. So you created a situation where Azerite gear is the big thing in BFA, and it was not obtainable, or at least it was down to sheer luck for Mythic Plus Dungeoneers. To the point where even a month after Mythic Plus came out, some people still didn't have one, because your only shot at it was, you know, getting it from your one shot each week. No matter how many Mythic Plus dungeons you did, your one shot from a huge loot table. It's the difference between fast food and a sit-down restaurant. At a fast food place, you pay first, then get your food. At the other, you sit down and get the food first, then pay. I'd never thought of that, actually, that analogy. That's actually true, isn't it? Unless you're Homer Simpson, in which case they should ask for the money up front wherever you go. But yeah, that's perfectly true, isn't it? Yeah. Islands are a discrete feature to BFA that were released, obviously, in an alpha state. Well, yes. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, the thing is, they've never known what to do with islands. They've said so. When they actually admitted they didn't know what to do with islands during the alpha, I mean, that was it for me. See, I think content's better when the creative team thinks of a thing and then the tech team works out a way to do it. I think that's always better than with islands. It's quite clear they've thought of a technology to use and then asked the creative team to come up with a use for it. That doesn't seem to have worked quite so well. Bit different to pre-ordering a pizza 7 months before you get it, though. Well, you should try living where I am. You know, the fast food around here is appalling in all sorts of ways. One, it's usually fairly inedible. Two, it does take forever to arrive. So your inedible crap takes forever to arrive. Anyway. That was the intent to gate the gear by their admission, but it wasn't handled well. Hang on, what am I talking about here? Gating what content? I might have missed that, sorry. Oh, to gate the gear with Azure. No, but it was never going to work with Azure, with Mythic Plus Dungeons, sorry, if that's what you're talking about. It was never possible to work. What, no good curry takeaway here? Not here, no. It's disgusting. I have to, sometimes, like, I will put up with a substandard pizza or a kebab, right, from a takeaway around here. I will not put up with the shit they serve as so-called curry. See, the problem is with curries are actually not that hard to make. So I can actually make my own curries, right? I can't make a pizza, if I'm honest. I don't have a pizza oven. My oven's not going to ever get hot enough to make a decent pizza. And I ain't making dough and all that crap either. So bollocks to that. But a curry is an easy thing to make. So I can make curries anyway. You know, a curry place around here would have to actually be good. But the problem is, it's horrible. Gordon Ramsay, if he went into any of the curry houses around here, he would go ballistic. Absolutely ballistic. I would hear the shouting from where I live. The rice is disgusting. And I know as well, Because one of my students, his family like knows people who own one of these restaurants as well, and it's all just microwaved shit. So disgusted. So now I make my own curries, which is fine. That's okay. My biggest gripe is Chinese, because I'm not very good at actually making Chinese, but nowhere around. It's all fucking horrible. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. So I haven't had a decent Chinese for years. Anyway. In the end, let's get back into WoW. In the end, the shareholder pressure, like I stated, to rush products out, force otherwise great companies to push out as-is releases, unfortunately. It is, unfortunately. I mean, the thing is, ultimately, what drives a business is it needs funding for all of its projects. It needs funding to pay its employees. I've gone blurry. I'm still blurry. Why is it taking ages to focus on me? There we go. So the people with the money drive it all, and the people with the money don't care about the product. They don't care about the customers. They care about their returns. So that is it. So they have no choice. The people running the business and working in the business have no choice. The only people who have a choice in this are the customers, us. We can choose to not get pre-orders, or we can at the very least choose to think about the pre-order bonuses and think to ourselves, do I really need those? Do I really need them? The problem is, of course, one person not buying a pre-order isn't going to make any effect. 1 million people not buying the pre-order has an effect. But you don't know, you can't trust that 1 million other people, or 999,999 people, are going to do the same thing as you. So what you do is you go, well, everyone else is going to buy the pre-order. I might as well. I don't want to miss out on the bonus, even if it's going to be shit. And that's the problem. No good chippies either. No, I am not kidding. I can't swear that there's no good restaurants in Scunthorpe. What I can say is that there are no good takeaways in Scunthorpe, because I've lived here for nearly 3 years now. I've tried a wide range of them, and I have not found a single one that serves what I would call food. It's all horrible. Anyway. Transfer of Endgame from Tier to Azerite led to the Mythic Plus cash system. Old habits of thought had much to sway. They just didn't think it through. They didn't think it through. It's like so many other things. They do not think it through. I think, because I've experienced this in workplaces that I've worked in the past, and the only explanation I can come up with is sometimes when you have a system where there's bad managers, they create a culture whereby if you criticise something, you're seen as being destructive and negative. So, because bad managers won't take criticism. Because they don't see it as a chance to improve. So I can only imagine a culture such as that exists there. It's the only thing that makes sense to me. Gaming industry is too big an industry. It's the same reason why Hollywood is so damn awful, churning out crap every week. Yeah, but it's the same thing though. If people go and watch it, if people don't watch it, then they won't do it. People didn't go and watch the Warcraft movie, so they didn't do another one. Which is a shame, because I quite liked that. You're mainly pissed off that you can't get Expulsum from World Quest or table missions. You have to craft like 200... Oh, that's really annoying, actually, yeah. You have to craft like 200 leather braces to get 40 Expulsum. That is annoying. I agree with you on that one. I absolutely hate that. Yes. A flood starts with 1 drop. Pretty sure it starts with a big old storm. Remember, at the end of the day, it's only pixels, nothing tangible. Well, this is true, but then such is life. We all go to dust in the end anyway, so even tangible things are worthless. There's some great chip shops in the Black Country. There's great chip shops. There's pockets. Like 40 miles down the road in Cleethorpes, there's a fantastic chip shop called Steele's. They're brilliant. They're always packed out. It's one of those restaurants where they squeeze you. I mean, I can't squeeze in anymore. They squeeze you into these tiny little seats and tables because they're so busy. Even like if it's pissing it down with rain, there'll be a queue right out the door. They'll wait an hour to get in. It was amazing. There's a place in York that's very good as well. And in Scarborough. So you get these little pockets where they're actually really good. But anyway. People are addicts, that's why we keep putting up with their shit. Well, see, but this is the thing that we are, yeah, and this is the problem. The issue is, though, even if we did, it's not that if we didn't pay for the pre-order, the game wouldn't come out. The game would come out in a decent state. It's a bit like people moaning about politicians. Well, you shouldn't have voted them in. If that politician's a dickhead who don't care about anyone, why are we voting them into power? Vote for some sod else. Ask questions of the people that you're going to vote for. Ask them questions. You know, it's the same thing with games. Ask questions until you are convinced. And I'm not saying that people should do this, because I don't do it myself. I don't want to be a hypocrite. But ultimately, you know, if everyone asked questions of it and didn't hand over their money until they were sure they knew what they were getting, then we would get a good product. Because it's in their interest. At the moment, it's not in their interest to give us a good product. It's in their interest to hype us into thinking it will be a good product, because then we'll pay for it. And it's perfect. The gaming industry is absolutely perfect for that. Because if it was a car, right, and we bought a car in advance order and the car didn't bloody well work, the law would entitle us to a full refund. But when it's a game, it's debatable what do you mean by whether it works or not adequately, because there's a lot of subjectivity to it. And, you know, if you play it for a certain amount of time, they can argue that that a game doesn't last as long as a car, of course. It's only, you know, some people will consume a game within a few weeks. So, you know, the ability to get a refund is more limited. So all they effectively have to do is grab the money off you, and they've basically won. You're glad the way you remember going to see the Warcraft movies was just me and some other guy. That's disappointing. I mean, it was full when I went to see it. But, you know, I mean, I went to see it early on. Glad the way the new gold mission actually... Oh, missed in that. Requires doing something first to get the mission. Yeah. Well, I don't mind. Either way with that. A crafted plate 385 belt is almost a guaranteed upgrade. But getting 50 expulsum is worse than pulling teeth. See, for me, it's the other thing. I can't remember which Sanguicell, because I don't raid, so I've got no chance. I'm describing classic right there. What did I just say? Getting old, I don't remember what I'm talking about. The sad truth is WoW has gone downhill for a while now, but it's still the best MMO out there. I think it is for endgame, but I mean, the issue now is, I mean, I don't really do endgame. So it could be argued that the main reason I still prize WoW above other games is because of the years I've dedicated to it, I suppose. You couldn't stand Final Fantasy, and although you love Elder Scrolls Online, it doesn't have the polish WoW has. It doesn't, at endgame, it's not so good. I mean, the thing is, though, if I were, as I am now, if I was playing all these games right now for the first time, it wouldn't be WoW that I would settle on. In fact, if you were to, so consider the following games. So Lord of the Rings Online, Star Wars The Old Republic, Elder Scrolls Online, Black Desert Online, World of Warcraft. At the best, at the absolute best, I would probably put World of Warcraft in third place out of that list of 5. If I were playing casually, as I am now, having never played, if I were to just try them all out for a couple of weeks each, WoW would probably be at best in third place. If I were NA, you'd bring me all day. Well. Unfortunately not. I'm not likely to level my character much. Every now and then I'll potter about on it. You like everything about ESO except the actual combat. Well, it is aspects of the combat that are not great. Not all of them. Some of it's fine. Anything to do with animation cancelling is not good. And the fact that the devs are completely fine with it means that it'll never be looked at. Whereas, at least to their credit, Blizzard don't accept animation cancelling as a good thing. So they do try and take steps to stop it being useful. I mean, sometimes it sneaks in, particularly with Demon Hunters. What about, Final Fantasy 14 do I not like? I don't know, it's just a theme thing. It's not, there's nothing specifically about the game design or anything I don't like. It just doesn't feel good for me. It's a bit like WildStar. WildStar might be an amazing game. It's just the look of it, this sort of Sonic the Hedgehog Online type look. It's the same with Final Fantasy 14. It's not like the graphics either. It's just like the interface and stuff like that. It didn't immerse me. I didn't like it. Didn't get on with it. So it's nothing against the content or anything. You hate the weapon swapping mechanics in ESO. Yeah. The fact that you can do it is nice. The fact that you have to do it is bad. To be fair, though, because I play it very casually, I don't have to do it. I play a Magicka Templar. I can kill anything in solo play with just my main bar. So that's okay. But yeah, the idea of going to one weapon, applying buffs and debuffs, then going to another, especially as the interface doesn't really allow you to see how your debuffs are going, and it's not like they last a minute or something like that. Sometimes they might only last about 12 seconds, and without add-ons, it's not very obvious when they're wearing out. You've got to look for like graphical tells and stuff. So yeah, there's an awful lot in terms of playing seriously about combat that is not great in Elder Scrolls Online. And that's why I say the end game is not as good as WoW's. But for everything else, it's really good. You preferred Warhammer Online. I really liked Warhammer Online. In terms of a PvP game, it was great. For PvE, it was shit because it was bugged to hell. And it wasn't that great anyway, the PvE content. But PvP was fun. I actually joined a guild on that game and actually played PvP every day. Or virtually every day. And it was fun. Except when I played the Chaos Warrior and had to do that bloody cycling of auras. That was rubbish. That was another degenerate form of gameplay. But my main character was a disciple of Cain anyway, so that was fun. ESO is way too floaty for you. Floaty in what sense? Oh, rec question, hold on. 8.1, Divine Storm, Righteous Verdict, and 2 targets. Now, if you're using Righteous Verdict, you would not Divine Storm 2 targets. But if you're using Righteous Verdict, you shouldn't be using Righteous Verdict unless you are just going to focus a single target. That's what Righteous Verdict is for. It is for pure single target. That's it. If there's any AoE to be done, someone else is doing it, not you. Otherwise, don't take Righteous Verdict. You haven't tried playing Black Desert, but the Eastern art style doesn't appeal to you. Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things with the game. If the art style doesn't appeal to you, like World of Warcraft, technically, I am not keen on the art style, but it doesn't put me off. It just isn't a plus in my book. It's a neutral, right? It's not a plus, but it's not a negative either. But yeah, if you actively don't like the art style, that's actually a super important part of a game. So there's no point. I mean, that's what I did with WildStar. I didn't play it because the art style did not appeal at all to me. You got bored of WoW that you went to play Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, and that led you to Star Wars The Old Republic. So far, you're enjoying it more than BFA. You don't know about Endgame. I don't think the Endgame's all that great, but there's plenty of content there to level. I have never got a character to level cap in that game. I'll probably play it a bit more this Christmas. I always seem to play it at Christmas, I quite like going to Hoth in my like my Christmas mobile. It's unbelievable. Oh, excuse me. God. Unbelievable the developers actually think that awfulness that is animation cancelling is somehow a good thing. Once again, players defend it. Yeah, I'm not sure the developers... I mean, they accept it, I think, more than say it's a good thing. I don't know. Maybe they do say it's a good thing. Because that's something that ESO developers do, that WoW developers don't. They actually do live Q&As. They do them on a regular basis. And they're actually live. You know, and I know that Blizzard do theirs live. Well, as far as we know, they do theirs live. There's no proof that they're doing it live because they never respond to anything in the chat. But they don't interact. Whereas, you know, that's the thing about when we talk about interactivity of communities. ESO, Star Wars: The Old Republic, Dungeons and Dragons even, although that's not a thingy game. Lord of the Rings Online. Developers always, to varying degrees, do stuff. And when they do live discussions, they do interact as well. Like Blizzard are afraid to. And I don't know why they hate the community so much that they won't actually interact. Because that was another thing I was going to pick up on. So before BlizzCon, we were all talking about how they're finally listening to us. They're finally engaging because they suddenly started doing a load of engagement. They did extra Q&As. They did the Reddit AMA. They did all this, that and the other. Since then, they've actually done nothing. Because someone pointed out to me, and I had a look at it and they were right, there hasn't been any developer posts on the forums for like at least through the whole of November. There's not even been that many community managers discussing game on the forums. But even when they do, it's pointless because it's like having a discussion with another... Because they're not developers. So it's just like having a discussion with another player that has to defend a particular point, whatever they personally feel. Because, of course, it's their job to defend Blizzard. So when community managers do discuss aspects of gameplay, it's useless because they've got to toe the party line. And they're not developers. So you're not getting any insights at all from doing that. You just think they're arrogant. It's like Howard Rockstar with his leather jacket at the conference revealing Fallout 76. Well, they are arrogant. There's no doubt about that. And again, you know, but I think it goes more than mere conceit. I mean, there is that element. But it's so destructive. It doesn't help the rabid fanboys, fangirls screaming at every word. Yeah, but you're going to get that anyway. You have to accept that. There's no point. It's a bit like Blizzard complaining, you know, about trolls. Well, you know, you choose to engage on the internet. There's going to be trolls. Face it. Deal with it. I deal with it. I'm sure they can deal with it. But... You know, you get the thing, you get the white knights, you get the trolls. Accept it, right? Doesn't have to stop you engaging. And if their precious little, you know, personalities are too fragile to cope with all that, then they shouldn't be doing the job they're doing. None of them had a gun forced to their head and were made to do it. They're being paid a lot of money. The senior developers, at least, are being paid a hell of a lot of money to do their job. And they should be able to cope with the pressures that come with it. ATVI price down. I don't even know what that is. Oh, do you mean that's Activision? No, that's not Activision's price share. Don't know what that is. They better not treat Elder Scrolls 6 like Fallout 76 as a cheap cash grab. Elder Scrolls fans will burn Bethesda to the ground. You say that... But what realistically, you know, look at it this way, all right, Caleb, look at it this way. What we're talking about, mostly we're talking about from the point of view of Battle for Azeroth. But we are seeing the same behaviour that's led to the issues we have with Battle for Azeroth in lots of other games by lots of other studios. So... And it's lots of different individual people working for different companies, all doing the same thing. So what's to say that it's going to be very different for Elder Scrolls 6? I mean, I'm not saying it won't be, but there can be surely no confidence that it'll be any different. Because, unless, of course, they've been so badly burnt by Fallout 76 that it snaps them out of it and they decide to put a bit more effort in. But that's a hope. I don't think you can say that's an expectation. ESO launch was a disaster. And you could tell, the thing is, I'd already pre-ordered it and I knew it was going to be a disaster before it came out. And the reason I knew that is because they put back the launch of the Xbox and PlayStation 4 release. Not the PC release, but they, despite what they were saying, it was, the console market was the main market for it. Because they delayed indefinitely the console release at round about the time they were ready. Because they were always going to release the PC version first. It was always scheduled to release about a month earlier, because that was the beta for the console. And then they postponed indefinitely the console release until they could sort it out. So you knew it was a problem. Final Fantasy 14 launch was a disaster. Then the companies did say, I heard about Final Fantasy 14 having major work to make them great games. It's certainly with the case with ESO, because I personally experienced it, and I have heard that Final Fantasy 4, the developers were quite contrite about that and frank. That was the thing. They freely and frankly admitted the problems and then dealt with them. And that's something Blizzard aren't doing. They're not acknowledging what's gone wrong. And if you don't, I think they genuinely don't believe, and when did I say this? I said this in a video already this week. And I likened it to an episode of Kitchen Nightmares. I ought to now finish off because we're going well over time here. I liken it to an episode of Kitchen Nightmares with Gordon Ramsay. I've already said this on the mailbox, I think, this week. Where, I remember it, he went into this restaurant, and it was all shit, of course, like it always is. And he said to the manager, what's wrong with this restaurant? And the manager said, we don't have enough customers. And so Gordon went, yeah, so what's wrong with the restaurant? What's leading to that? And she was just confused. It's like, we don't get enough customers. And it's that sort of thinking. She wouldn't accept that there's anything wrong with the restaurant. It was the customer's fault that the restaurant was failing, not anything that the restaurant was doing. And it's like that with Blizzard. It's the customers who don't understand game design, who are asking for the moon, who are just, asking for too much, all entitled wankers. That's their attitude. And because of that, they don't accept that anything they are doing is wrong. All they're accepting is that what they're doing is unpopular. That's it. So when they're saying, oh yeah, we're listening to you, we agree with you, they're lying. They don't agree with us. They're not listening. They're just doing things because we've asked for it and because, they think it'll make it more popular. But they don't respect, the views. Because now that they've put some of these things in place, their attitude is, right, we've done what they've asked for, they'll be perfectly happy now. And then if we're not, they'll turn around and say, oh, it doesn't matter what we do, they're never happy, we can't please these people, they're so unreasonable. Because they do not accept that anything they've done is wrong. Anyway, Ret in 8.1, shit to or good, I think it'll be decent. I think one of the big problems with Ret in 8.0 was poor AoE for Mythic Plus dungeons, and just the encounters in Uldir were poorly suited for Rets. I think there'll be much better shape going into the next tier. Obviously, I'm not having to do that tier, but that's as I would read it at the moment. Anyway, let's get the last couple of ones in. I'm 2 minutes and then we're finished. You must think this must be a consequence of the gaming market developing. We're no longer the main audience. There is that as well. You think the Elder Scrolls fan base is very devoted to those games. World of Warcraft audience is very devoted to World of Warcraft or to Warcraft. It doesn't stop the developers taking the piss. But anyway, so Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim have all been top tier RPGs and early on. so far ahead of their time for open world games. So if you're expecting a similar amount of groundbreaking content in 6, maybe. Can't say not. Maybe. And I will probably play it. It'll be the first Elder Scrolls game from Bethesda I will have played. I probably will play it. I might even play that Blades, because it does come out on PC at some point. But anyway. But we'll have. But I wouldn't be hopeful if I was honest. That's what most devs don't do. Stand by their games and tell people about problems and bugs and what exactly they're doing. Instead, you get patch notes which addresses various fixes. That's it. Yes. I hate that we lost the Divine Storm shooting forward thing. I hate that as well. In Mythic Plus, because there's lots of times in Mythic Plus when you have to move out of melee range, and it'd be so useful to fire a Divine Storm through. So even though, do you know what the irony is? And I wasn't that keen on it when it first appeared in Legion. But the reason I wasn't keen on it is because they changed our mastery. It was actually our mastery that stopped me being happy with it. Whereas with the mastery we have in BFA, the forward shooting Divine Storm be loads better. Divine Tempest indeed, yes. So last comment then. Feels like the Chinese gold rush has hit WoW's development team pretty hard. Is it worth 10 times the customers to move to China and just forget about North American gamers? Maybe. And you don't like the new spell effects for consecration. They've gone. They've got rid of them. There is no new spell effect for consecration. They removed it. If you go on the PTR now, they've reverted it. So it's another paladin spell animation that they've put on a PTR, and then it's not going to go live. Which is a shame, because I actually quite liked it, but I know a lot of people didn't. But yeah, it's gone. It's disappeared again now. You're not going to notice any change on consecration next week, unless they put it back again. But I don't think they will, because I think the reason they removed it was negative feedback. You hope they got rid of that stupid book for Holy Light. That never made it to live. It never actually made it. Maybe it didn't make it because I criticised it in that video that for some reason got loads of views. Who knows? Maybe they watched it and thought, yeah, it looks a bit stupid. So maybe it's my fault that never made it to live. But apparently, and I didn't realise for ages. But yeah, it never made it to live. So the Holy Light animation went before it ever got there. Oh, the book is back on the PT. Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, it's back on, is it? Oh, well, never mind. There was me thinking I was finally an influencer, but no. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, maybe that's back. You love the new idea that they had with the cone AoE heal. Or the Light of the Dawn. I like the Light of the Dawn new animation. I think it looks really good. It's a shame I don't get it. A lot of holy spells got new animations. Some of them are just crap. The Flash of Light is just shit. I don't know what the point of that is. The Beacon of Light change, you don't even notice. You have to actually be looking for it. But the Light of the Dawn, I think it's amazing. The new one. I see as well. I was ready to be unimpressed because the one we have now, like the original, I think that looks really nice. So I thought this is going to have to be pretty special for me to think it's an improvement, and it is. Very, very nice. Very good indeed. Anyway, I'm going to call it there. Thank you very much for coming on, everyone. And until next time, I'll see you later.